Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of legendary MLB player Joe Morgan, and also as a former announcer, a baseball announcer, in addition to being a former MLB player. He died of a neuropathy on October 11th, and my prayers are sent out to his family and close family members. And he was, again, a legendary player, had an illustrious career with the Cincinnati Reds. He was part of the 1975 team. He was known as that Big Red Machine in that 1970s period, where they were a very dominant team, where they were perennial contenders for the title. And he was part of this 1975 team, which is regarded as one of the greatest teams in MLB history. I'm going to talk about some placements, natal placements, and transits that might have been tied in, at least at the time of his passing. I don't. It was stated he died not of. I don't know if that would be because of neuropathy. That is some kind of like a nerve condition which may start out like the feet and the hands, and then escalates to like the arms and the legs, I believe. But I don't know if that is something that is perilous or not. I just know that his health was deteriorating. It was dissipating at the time of his death. He did have the neuropathy, this polyneuropathy, I believe it is. I don't know if I'm saying it right. He had this at the time of his death, but I don't know if that's actually a cause or not. But his health was just in general decline. Now, the one thing that stands out to me, that transit Uranus was a very tight conjunction to his natal ascendant at the time he died, and at this time that neuropathy, the polyneuropathy, I'm sure was escalating and getting worse. Uranus is connected with the nerves and Taurus's stubborn energy. This might have been a more persistent issue at the time when he passed away. He also has 4 planets in Gemini, and Gemini is associated with the nerves along with Aquarius. He has Uranus conjunct the moon in Gemini. The moon in Gemini, even by itself, can manifest in issues with the nerves. He has Uranus, a planet associated with nerves, conjuncted. And he also has his Mercury in Virgo, and his Uranus, I believe, are both retrograde. He has Neptune conjunct Mercury in the 6th house of health. Mercury can be associated with the nerves as well as the hands. Neptune can be about weakness and dissolving energy and dissipation. This is probably something where he was experiencing very strong weakness connected with his hands. It might have become a worrisome issue that he might have analyzed a lot, given that this is in Mercury. Given that it is in Mercury, and he also has the Sun conjunct this. I'm sorry, I may have made a mistake. His Mercury may actually be in Libra. I'm trying to say it right here, people, but let me hold on a minute. I know his Sun is in Virgo, but his Mercury actually, it is in Libra, but it still conjuncts Neptune, and Mercury is still retrograde. Mercury again is connected with the nerves, and when it's retrograde, I could see that as manifesting as having some certain issues or problems with the nerves not working properly, because Mercury is associated with it. He does have Neptune conjunct as Mercury. Again, that could be about weakness with the nerves, or dissolving dissipation of matter, of using the hands even. And also too, he has the Sun in conjunction with Neptune and Mercury. Now the ascendant is what dominates the physical body and physical debilitations that a person may have, but the Sun can play a role as well. He has his Sun conjunct Mercury, and Mercury again can be associated with the nerves. The Sun conjunct Neptune can be about the dissolving and dissipation of one's health. A deterioration at some point may be quicker than the average person, I would say, because almost everybody succumbs to deteriorating health at a point in time in their life due to old age in many cases. But when you have Neptune conjunct your Sun, I see that as something where this could be about general weakness that one may be experiencing perhaps at an earlier age than average in their health, their vitality, and their energy. And another thing I'm seeing in his chart as well is that he does have, in the Mercury, appears it makes at least a loose inconjunct aspect to his ascendant, and it's coming from the sixth house of health in his chart, and on top of that, it is intercepted, so that could actually make it more exasperating and troublesome and more difficult to deal with, more taxing in some cases. Now, in having all those, I mean, you're talking about all those planets, and the ruler of the sixth house of health does fall in his sixth house, so it tells you that the health issues may have been very worrisome, and it was something that really affected his daily routine, probably more so than most people. At this time, he had transit Pluto, at least in a loose conjunction to his natal midheaven, so it's not surprising this was a death that gained a lot of notoriety and recognition and exposure. He also has his natal Pluto in Leo, and in the fourth house. I believe he died in his home, and when you have Pluto in the fourth house, can be an indicator of a death that can take place in one's home life. And he also has in Pluto in Leo, even though Pluto in Leo, I mean, Pluto is generational. The fact that it is in Leo, sometimes I think it manifests in a death that garners a lot of attention and recognition, and it gets a lot, just a lot of notoriety and publicity. He also has the North Node making a conjunction to his natal Pluto, so it was really seems to be fated more so than most that his death was going to occur in his home. Now, a thing that I'm looking at too is that he also, just looking at some other placements in his chart. Now he has the zodiac sign Cancer on the fourth house cusp, which is another indicator of the death taking place in an introverted manner and in the home. And that ruler, oddly enough, the ruler of his fourth house of the end of life conjuncts Uranus. And Uranus, this is this thing about the polyneuropathy. And if polyneuropathy, poly, I would say, means multiple, means more than one. And interestingly enough, that Uranus is connected with nerves, and he has it in Gemini. And that could be maybe this manifested in issues that were affecting multiple parts of his body as far as things that were nerve related. And again, having all that those planets in Gemini, and I mean, which is associated with the nerves. I have my moon in Gemini, and I have had issues with my nerves. I have irrevocable nerve damage, very extensive nerve damage, and it strongly affects the use of my arms and hands. And also, too, looking at his third house cusp is also in Cancer, and that's the ruler, again, the moon in Gemini, hitting Uranus, so it's not surprising that the third house can be connected with mobility. So he likely had, this really might have affected his mobility more so than most people. So anyway, I'm just trying to see if there's anything else in his chart that's an indicator of this passing, in being due, not due to the polyneuropathy or whatever this was actually called, but having this at the time of his passing. Now, looking at this his chart as well. The thing I wanted to just maybe add to this, which is not related to his passing, to his death, is that he also, I mean, in his chart, looking at him, just breaking down, it was interesting, his sun, moon, and ascendant. He was a sun in Virgo, moon in Gemini, and Taurus ascendant. And what it tells me is that the sun in Virgo is about the focus on things, analytics, things that are analyzing things. In his case, maybe breaking down statistical data when he was doing his MLB announcing. The fact that he has this in Gemini is an indicator of doing so very eloquently, very verbose manner, and really doing this very, very loquaciously, so to speak, with a lot of communication. And the fact that he had a Taurus ascendant, the Taurus ascendant is flavoring this energy, done in a very calm, deliberate, placid manner, and he seemed like he was very composed whenever I would watch him in terms of his announcing. He seemed very unflappable. You hardly ever saw him look really nervous, and that's that Taurus facade, that front. And the only other thing I want to say is that it's interesting that Tim, some of you may have heard of Tim McCarver. He also played baseball. I think he was a teammate of Joe Morgan's for some time with the Cincinnati Reds, and he stated to Joe Morgan one time, it was on the Tim McCarver show, he stated to Joe Morgan that he thought he was the smartest Major League Baseball player he had ever played with. And interestingly enough, when you look at Joe Morgan's, looking at his chart, he does have he has 4 planets in Gemini, and then the Mercury. And I'm trying to see, I know he's got the Mercury in Libra, that's 5 planets in air right there. It seems to be an air dominant chart. And I'm looking at Neptune is in Libra as well, so there's 6 out of 12 as far as major astrological energies go. 6 of them are in air signs. And when I'm talking about major astro energy, I'm referring, of course, to the 10 astrological planets, the ascendant and midheavens. So that's really not much more really to talk about as far as his passing at this time. At the time he passed away, he also had transit Sun in Libra in the 6th house of health. So that's obviously a focus on the health and shining the light on health-related matters. Perhaps, I don't know if he had anything Libra-related, such as something with the lower back, the kidneys, the endocrine system. But it's all but the fact that the transit Sun is in that 6th house when he passed away. It would not surprise me if he was having issues at the time with that. And also, at the time of his passing, he had transit Mars in the 12th house, and that could manifest in weakened vitality and energy when you have transit Mars in the 12th house of limitations. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else as far as his health may have gone that stands out and is noticeable. I do notice that in his chart he does have the Sun in Virgo squaring his Saturn in Gemini. When you have Saturn making an adverse aspect to your Sun, that could manifest in issues with the bones, the knees, the joints, the hamstrings. At this time, he might have been suffering with some kind of bone deterioration. The fact that Saturn is in Gemini, that could reinforce and confer what I was talking about with difficulties with mobility. There may have been issues moving with his movements with his arms at this time and his hands as well. I mean, maybe during the course of his life, or a good part of his life to some degree, because we're talking about natal placement. He also had transit North Node not far from his natal Saturn at the time he passed. So that is something where when you're talking about the North Node in transit, that can manifest in issues one may have to confront and address. And we're talking about Saturn. Saturn could be about chronic debilitations and illnesses. There might have been something with this polyneuropathy or whatever it may have been that was causing issues with his arms, his hands, and just general mobility issues. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.